right, so hold on. I got to transfer us back to us. There we go. How you doing? Welcome to the Beat Cups Guide. I'm Dave Haynes. That is.
I am Bo Garlington. I am
Bull Garlington. Bull Garlington right over there. And I'm David Haynes.
Oh, it's just a picture of our.
Well, that's just the. There's a delay in when we say something, it goes on Facebook. So
yeah, that's right. I forgot.
Sorry.
My watch party started.
Oh, look at Ted Hogan's online.
We should have done it last night. My buddy did a thing with Rocky Patel last night.
Doing what?
He does a cigar thing.
At Rocky Patel's?
No, Rocky Patel was a guest.
Oh, is this that the podcast where they do all the
this
pipe?
Is a whole new thing. This is a new thing that it's mostly about cigar ideas or something. I don't know.
Oh, okay. Well, way to bring up something that you don't know anything about. All right, Chris.
And next, I'll discuss astrophysics.
All right, so
when a daddy star and a mama star love each other very much.
It's the Friday before Memorial Day, so
we normally have just returned from fish camp, victorious in every way, except of course in catching fish.
Although this time we would have come back to flooded basements and peeved off wives.
Yeah, it would have been terrible. I mean, we have that already. It's just we would have been coming back to it.
Yeah. All right. So I don't know why but when I put it on YouTube, our video shows the title of like an old video for some reason. I wonder if I can edit it while I'm on the fly.
It sure looks good on It looks good on Facebook. I like the fact that we're both in space right now. That's cool.
It's kind of a.
So I don't know why when I put it on YouTube,
it was not intentional. It was not intentional. So I don't know. I just happened to pick this because I was messing around with the camera and so, but you're actually out in space, right? You're on the space shuttle right now?
Yeah, I was, I'm on the Slovakian astronaut program. So they, the amazing thing is they are really good at sending us out into space. They have not, turns out, created a coming back program. So this is where I'll be broadcasting from now on until I run out of oxygen. So,
all right. So it's like I said, the Friday before Memorial Day. In this year, in these interesting times in which we live, it really doesn't mean a whole lot. There's no parades. There's no barbecues.
Yeah, we might still barbecue, but just by ourselves.
Yeah. I was going to say the mattress stores are shut down, so there's no big mattress sales.
Damn it, I need a mattress, too. I think I'm just going to be in my backyard burning something and drinking beer. If I may barbecue, I just may set some shit on fire.
All right. So I'm sorry. I was making sure that we are live on YouTube. And if you're watching on Facebook, welcome. But, it'd be better for us if you watched on YouTube and upped our subscribers so we can actually make a little cash on this deal.
Well, we 10 years made how much money?
None. I think we actually
$6, right?
We're down about a couple $100.
We're like an old gambler who won't leave the casino.
I just wonder how long my wife's going to put up with my hobbies that actually cost money, and I keep saying, "Well, someday it'll actually make us some money someday." But
yep.
All right. So what have you been doing? I reviewed a couple restaurants this morning. I was on with Dean Richards on WGN this morning.
Really?
Yeah, and it's funny. It's a little different dynamic than Bob Surratt. He's
Dean Richards that used to be in Orlando.
No.
Okay, different guy. All right.
I don't think he's been here for forever. It seems like he's
okay.
Big
Different
movie
guy.
review guy.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I reviewed a restaurant called Brasa Roja. It's a Colombian steak and chicken restaurant.
How do you go to a restaurant and review it when you can't go inside.
Well, it's all takeout now. I mean, I do when I can go into a restaurant, I describe what it looks like, but everything I do is takeout. You know, it's curbside service. It's pickup, and
You should complain about the seating. Seating was cramped, as if one was in a car or atop a motorcycle.
But it was a cool restaurant. But there was a funny little thing. Annie picked up the food or ordered the food, and I said they have this red snapper fillet in Creole sauce, which
That sounds delicious.
when I said that on the radio, I followed up by saying what sounds like a double entendre, but it's really not. And no reaction at all from them either. I hope that somebody listening somewhere thought about it later and I don't know, thought it was funny. Red snapper always sounds like a always sounds like a
You said that on WGN?
a slang term. Yeah.
My God, man. Well, it was nice while you had that gig, you know.
But anyway, instead of ordering the red snapper fillet with Creole sauce, she ordered the red snapper, which there's 3 red snapper dishes at Brazo Roja, one of which is a fried red snapper. And
Eyes and all, teeth and eyes and fins, the whole thing.
so picture in your mind the last scene of the Christmas Story movie where they went to a Chinese restaurant and they ordered duck and they brought the whole duck out with the head. Well, we opened up the fried red snapper. It is the whole fish fried, the head, the tail, everything. Michelle wouldn't come. She wouldn't come in the dining room for like 10 minutes because of the red snapper sitting on the table staring at her.
Drape a napkin over its eyes so it can't look at you while you eat it. You know?
Yeah. So, but it was good food. Very good food. The Colombian steak. The only problem I had with it, and I didn't say this on the radio because it's clearly the type of food that tastes really good right when it's out of the oven. When you have to drive a half an hour home, and it cools down a little bit.
Yeah.
You know, I don't know. It was kind of like
Still good, but not as good.
Right. It's like eating really good leftovers. You know.
Sorry, what?
Like eating really good leftovers.
Oh.
All right. We can't both take drinks at the same time.
Did we just do that? I wasn't even looking. We had.
Right.
Go ahead. No,
No, go ahead. I was going to say we had some topics. Is that what you were going to say?
well, I've got workmen here right now.
Oh,
And,
yeah?
They came and they have dug a giant hole in my basement and repiped everything and put in backflow valves and stuff. And now they're finishing up and re-cementing it. And then I got another crew coming in about halfway through our show who are going to start the water mitigation from our flood. And they're going to work till 10 o'clock and then come back tomorrow. It's been a stressful day.
So you have a big hole in your basement?
I did. It's filled back in now, but it was weird to walk in my basement and there's a giant gaping chasm and next to it a mountain of soil. And, and just, it was weird. They had to go to the store.
While the hole was open, did you have like time where there was nobody around and it was just, there's a big hole in your basement and nobody's there?
Well, I peed in it.
That's what I was also going to say. You know, you could start thinking, my wife has really been pissing me off. These guys are going to come back in. They're going to fill a hole. All I got to do is cover her a little bit.
Just ignore that. Just ignore that, guys. I filled it in for you while you were gone. No, it's supposed to move. It's settling.
I wanted to help out. Maybe you could take a couple $100 off the bill.
Yeah. It was, they had a heck of a job because this house is built in 1937, so nothing is to current code. Everything is wrong. The doors are all the wrong size. All the pipes are weird. And so they had to do a lot of weird custom stuff, but they got it done. Next, some guys could come in and start knocking crap around. But I woke up this morning because I could hear, it sounded like a string of garbage trucks in front of my house. And I was like, oh, and then I remembered we were supposed to be getting a dumpster. And I ran out and the guy just parked in the street. And he was like, I was about to leave. I pounded on your door and I'm like, I don't know, were you at the wrong house or something? But then I had to move all the cars. It was terrible.
All right. Well,
Yeah,
I hope that
whatever.
works out.
Well, I don't care anymore.
Well, that's one way of dealing with it, I guess. All right. Well, we have some topics. You want to go through some topics before the workmen show up and you have to cut the show early?
Oh, my wife's taking care of it. I'm not gonna.
See, you just got softer again there. I don't know why that is.
I'm a soft man, Dave.
No, I don't know. All right. So
I'm a very soft man.
starting January 1st, the City Council of Chicago voted to banish the horse and carriage rides downtown. The horses and carriages had been around for, I don't know, forever,
Yeah.
driving through downtown. I actually used to did that. I did that for 1 year when I was
Oh,
first
I remember.
married
Yeah.
to make extra money.
Well, I remember you talking about it.
Right, and it was a very nice job. And you know what? You hear people talking about how the horses are treated or whatever. Anybody who you hear talking about the horses being treated badly is obviously somebody who has never seen anywhere where these horses are kept or treated, because they're not treated badly. I do see some people are saying they're quoted in the story in the, what is it, Sun Times. Fran Spielman, she quoted a few people who were saying that they're not a breed to be sucking gas fumes from the back of CTA buses and cement mixers and whatever, and they don't think that's humane treatment. Did
they ever ask the horse? I mean, what?
That's a valid point. Yeah, I mean, if that's what you believe about animals, but as far as the people taking care of the animals, they take care of them very well, very lovingly, and those horses are I don't know, they always seem very nice to me.
I can't tell you how many times I've been out driving through the wilds of Utah or one of those other states out there, and where there's a lot of wild horses, and they just come right up to the edge of the highway and just kind of poke their nose over the railing, just like they love nothing more than a little carbon monoxide or whichever one it is that we make with cars.
It's like nitrous oxide to them.
Yeah, it is. And then they run away and they prance, and I just think who are we to deny them their freedom to enjoy themselves?
Well, I just I know that there's animal lovers, animal rights activists, but I think a lot of times that they really don't take into account reality in any sort of way. They just assume that if horses are pulling a carriage in the city, then they're being treated bad. They don't go look. They don't go see these carriage companies and where they're kept. I remember I worked for Antique Coach and Carriage, and the way they had a barn over on Kingsbury, and it was a pretty big barn. It was obviously an old time barn, but they had normal stalls and stuff, and they had a garage where they kept all the tractors, and then they would bring all the horses in for the weekend from a farm in Indiana on a horse trailer. And at the end of the weekend, most of the horses would go back. There'd be a few that would stay during the week. And those horses were always rotated. And, I mean, they were cleaned every day. They were fed twice a day. They were treated very well. If you're in a barn in Chicago, it's not really that much different than being in a barn in Indiana. It's as long as you're being.
I remember that place. And
do you really?
It was across the street from it?
There was a strip joint right next door.
No, it was Elmer's Glue Factory.
That's not true.
They were built about the same time, actually. It was a small boutique factory. You couldn't handle a lot of horses, but some of them. And then right next to it was Mystery Tacos. So, a whole economy is going to be gone now.
I remember one time riding. I had a guy come up and he goes, "Give me a nice ride because I'm going to ask my wife I'm going to ask my girlfriend to marry me." I said, "All right. Wait about 10, 15 minutes. I'm going to go over to this little park, and there's a little park on what is it, Dearborn, north of Chicago, right across from where Shea Paul used to be." And I said, wait till I'm in the park. I'll go through the park. It's beautiful. It's in the middle of the city, buildings all around. And he's like, all right, great. So I get to the park. I'm turning off the street onto the park. He's in the middle of proposing to his girlfriend, and I hit a stop sign with the carriage. As he's asking her to marry him, I got the wheel caught on a stop sign. Yeah.
It's going so slow. I mean, it's just clopping along, man. How did you hit a stop sign?
I cut the turn too close. You have to turn onto the wheelchair ramp on the sidewalk. I cut the turn too close, so the back wheel of the carriage hooked into the stop sign. Scared the shit out of the horse, So I didn't get a tip. That was my horse and carriage thing. But I used to always, it used to really amuse Annie that I would give people rides around downtown on horses and carriage, and I would tell them the history of different buildings or places and stuff like that. And she realized, most other people didn't, but she realized that I was making everything up. I was just making up interesting stories.
I would love to do that. I would love to go downtown with one of those tourism sticks, and just stand there and just get a bunch of people to line up, and then just start walking around. This is where Al Capone used to live, right here in this Sears.
Right. He used to brew right here at Macy's in the basement. They used to brew beer. It was a huge little thing, and then during Prohibition, and the mayor was in on
Valentine's Day
it.
Massacre is right here at this Hallmark store, which is why they have Valentine's Day cards now. Anyway, give me $20. This is original Starbucks, built in 1845.
All right. So you got a topic, or are we going back to?
I like your topics. They're all good, man.
All right.
Somebody's in my mouse. You're going to talk about Malort made from beer, which, okay, listen.
Malort?
I know we're facing a lot of hardships, okay? But you don't have to fix everything, all right? If we can't get real Malort, we'll do without for a little while.
No. This is an interesting story, actually. So what had happened was the Revolution Brewing. I'm sorry, story here. Revolution Brewing has a bunch of anti-hero beer, and the anti-hero beer, all the kegs are being, they're kind of out. They're out of date. Oh yeah, somebody just pointed out that park is called Bughouse Square. That I was driving the horse and carriage.
What, are you on a historian channel or something?
No, this is our
watch party.
It's our watch party.
All right.
Lee Gerstenberger asked what we're smoking. I have a pipe. I am
smoking this mini guitar amp. There.
But all right, so Revolutionary Brewing brews anti-hero beer, and because of the pandemic, and it took everybody by surprise when they shut everything down. There's a crap load of, and that's an actual industry term, a crap load of kegs that are out of date and are going to, are even if the bars open up next week, there's a certain time that they have to sell these kegs of beer, which, by the way, I was not aware of.
You mean that you have to sell beer within a certain frame?
I thought once beer was in a keg. I thought once beer was in a keg and it was, sealed. I thought actually it lasted a long time, but apparently it doesn't last more than a couple months. So, so they have 160 kegs of anti-hero IPA that were about to fall out of code. And most of the bars and restaurants are closed. So rather than dump the beer, they teamed up with the CH Distillery to create a first, Malort made from beer.
I don't know. Malort's already terrible.
Well, yeah, and I guess what they say is it gives it a sort of a hoppy flavor from the beer. But
is that distinguishable from the rotten horse piss flavor from the Malort?
Well, apparently that bitterness, there's also a little bitterness in anti-hero beer. It adds to the bitterness in Malort and makes it even more bitter. So
that sounds like a fucking plan. Let's make it more bitter with old beer. If you had told me that what comes out of the pandemic was that somebody in Chicago was genius enough to find a way to make Malort worse. I would have said, come on, man. There's enough bad news out there every day. I don't need this in my life. But no, now some asshole is going to go take Malort and go, hey, we have a bunch of old beer laying around that's about to go rotten, technically. Let's turn it into something people drink called Malort. You know what? It's just wrong.
It's not some asshole. The guy's name who runs the distillery is called Josh Death.
I'll fight him.
Like Death.
His name is Death? His name is not Death.
Yes,
His name is not Death. That's just what he tells reporters.
Oh, I'm sorry. Revolutionary Brewing founder is named Josh Death. So he came
It's
up
like
with
a reporter
the.
going, what's your name, sir? My name is Harry. Harry has crack.
We should try to get him to come on next week. We should see if he'll come on and talk about it because it's
I'm
a
just gonna
fundraiser.
yell at him. I'm gonna
They're
yell
selling
at him.
these bottles for $25, and all the proceeds are going to help all the restaurant industry workers that have been out of work because of the pandemic. So it's for a good cause.
Blah, blah, blah. You know what? It's
You
not
can
good
drink-
enough, Dave.
You can drink bad liquor for a
not
good
good
cause.
Well, they should let you write their headlines, but it's still not good enough. It's still a horrible thing to do. It's like,
Yeah.
it's against God, and we should not be part of that.
I've never had Malort. I've never tasted it. So
No
why don't
way.
you describe?
There's no way you've lived in Chicago this long and you've never had Malort.
I've never had Malort. I was in my day when we were in our 20s and stuff. Jägermeister was a big thing. That was the bad shot.
It's Jägermeister compared to Malort is like candy. Malort's just, at least Jägermeister has a weird, like somewhere in there you go, there's a flavor there somewhere that's okay.
It tastes like ouzo.
But Malort, nothing about it is good. Even the mouthfeel is bad, and the color's wrong. Every single thing about Malort is bad. There is not.
So why is it so popular?
Because it's bad. Here's why people like Malort. Here's what my friends and I do with Malort when we go out. All right, we have a bartender we know. We go out. We order a round of Jameson shots. But I wink at her. One of them is Malort. Nobody's looking, and so when she comes out, we don't know who's going to get it. I always know I don't get it. All right, but sometimes I'll have her make sure like the new guy gets it, and so she hands out all the shots. One of them's Malort, and so everyone's like, "Yay!" And one guy's like, "Oh my god!" So we call it Malorticide.
Should call it Irish roulette
That's good too.
instead of Russian roulette. Irish roulette sounds like a game the Irish would play. All right.
I know people that are Irish.
Well, I thought this would kind of take us into the restaurants may be opening this next week. At least in the suburbs, they're not opening in Chicago. The mayor said that we're not ready yet, and the governor has decided to allow the restaurants to open up with outdoors dining next Friday. So, are you going to go out to dinner somewhere?
No. I'm not
No.
going out till there's a vaccine.
Because you're following the science, and even if the science is saying it's okay, you're not following the science anymore.
I'm following the scientists, absolutely. But I think that I'm also married to a former scientist. And just because they say that it's okay to open doesn't mean that all the people out there are going to follow the rules. And it doesn't mean that you still can't get sick. And I just, I'm going to wait and see. I'm not going to go out that first week unless I change my mind, in which case I'll find some way to talk about it that makes me not look like a hypocrite. But I don't plan to. I'm going to wait and watch everybody else, see how many people die off. I mean, they've opened up in a couple of other places in the world, and it didn't go so well. But I mean, they were kind of early.
Well, excuse me, I'm sorry. I've been listening to all the data all the time. That seems like all I read, and they've opened up They've opened up a bunch of other places, and nowhere has it gone bad. So I don't know where do you hear anywhere it's gone bad?
Singapore and South Korea both had an uptick in a recent uptick in cases.
Well, okay.
It's out there.
There's been some upticks in cases, but everybody.
Not for me.
Everybody-
That means I'm not going.
Everybody who's a data person has agreed that the fact that we're testing so many more people means we're finding the cases that are there, not that the cases are
I don't
going
buy
up.
I don't think it's enough. I don't think it's enough.
So, all right, so wait. So you're not following the science, the data.
No.
You're not tracking the data.
I'm making a choice. The scientists say it's okay to go out, but I'm still not going to go out yet because what the scientists are saying, they're not saying you won't get it. They're saying that it's unlikely that you'll get it in certain circumstances. But I'm not going to put myself out there. I'm going to wait and see.
Hey, and that's perfectly all right. That's absolutely your choice. I'm amused by people who say they're following the data and then they do what the data says not to do. And
data
that's
doesn't
what
say, okay, wait a minute. Now you're being dumb. The data doesn't say you have to go out.
No.
The data says that if you hit these marks, it's okay to reopen.
Right.
That doesn't mean you have to go. So
no,
fine,
absolutely not. That's fine. That's your choice, and that's your choice.
But I'm not following the scientists. I'm just deciding not to go out because I want to see what happens.
Well, that's fine. That's fine. What I'm talking about is that there are people who are saying that we have to follow the data when it comes to reopening society and going out, and then those same
I'm one of those
people.
guys.
But. But I mean, you can't have. Okay, so you're okay with everything reopening. You just don't want to be part of it.
Well, I don't. If the CDC guidelines are followed, then more power to them. But that doesn't mean I have to go. That means I can go. Let's see how this works. Because the CDC
that's fine.
They're not saying if you hit all these guidelines and then people go out, everything's going to be fine. What they're saying is this is the best possible way to do the reopening.
Right. There's no good choices.
Cases. You have to quit talking. Raise your hand to talk next time.
All
right. There still might be cases. You might have flare-ups. You might have there might be one person at a I was going to say Bennigan's, but they don't exist anymore. At a Chili's or something. All right. That's the one place where a person that was infected goes, and all those people in the Chili's get sick, even though all the CDC guidelines are followed. That still can happen. I'm not ready to go out there yet and take that chance. I don't have to, and I don't want to. That doesn't mean that I'm not following the CDC data and not relying on scientists. You're incorrect.
No, I what I'm talking about is like, if you follow the data, I'm talking about just the idea of reopening. Of course, every person has a right to not go out or not participate in society. That's fine. I do think that this is, from everything I've seen from every epidemiologist, this is going to be around a while. We don't know when we're going to have a vaccine. We're going to have to learn to live with it. All the data seems to be good that it's not as easy to transmit as they thought at first. And so like going to Chili's and having one guy in the Chili's get sick does not seem to cause a huge flare-up that spreads throughout the land. But
yet we have people that went to a church in Tennessee, and suddenly among that single population of those people, it was like a 39% infection rate from that one service.
No, I think that's a little off. I don't think that I'd like to see that. I heard about the church service, and I heard that one person got sick, but I haven't heard that there was a 39% infection rate based on that.
Make up whatever I want, man.
There you go. Speaking of statistics, though, I heard one yesterday that was interesting. In Norwood Park, in our neighborhood, we've had 13 people who have died from COVID. Because you live a little. You live a little outside.
You're not either, man. You're Jay Park. You're not in Norwood.
Well, if you look at the
Norwood adjacent, all right.
Whatever. All right. So in Norwood Park, which I have always thought of as my neighborhood, but apparently you don't think is. There's been 13 people who have died from COVID. 11 of them were in nursing homes.
Oh man.
Yeah, I think the nursing home thing is going to be our biggest problem going forward. We got to protect the old people.
I wonder how you do that.
Well, I think, first of all, one of the biggest problems that they had here and in New York was when people got sick, they would send them back to the nursing homes to recover, and that's a bad move. And, cutting out visitation is sad, but that's a good way to not bring it in.
Well,
and the other thing is...
Go ahead.
I was going to say the other thing is that people who work in nursing homes who got sick, especially in the beginning, were not. They were not forced to stay home. I mean, before the lockdown, people would go to work sick because they didn't think it was that bad, and so I think that's one of the reasons why the deaths and everything are trending down, is because we really have gotten to a point where we say, if you're sick, don't fucking come to work. It was before where these people would not get paid if they didn't go to work, and so if you're making $20 an hour, you probably need that $20 an hour, and so you're going to get out of there unless you really are too sick to get out of bed. So I think that's probably going forward going to be the one thing, like, I don't know, to make sure that a lot of these people have paid sick time.
You know who it's really affecting?
Poor people?
No, mattress models. Because how do you call into work and go, I am too sick to get out of bed to come into work to get into bed?
So, speaking, sorry, you just took me off on a tangent, but speaking of that, the Tribune did a story the other day. I wish I had it ready. He did a story the other day about how sex industry workers are really feeling the brunt of this COVID pandemic. And I'm like, wait a minute, how the hell is the Tribune are able to find these people that do interviews? I mean, I'd be terrified just to talk to these people.
I guess the chat girls or something, the webcam girls.
Well, they interviewed 3 dominatrixes. Is there really that many dominatrixes around Chicago?
I'm not going to tell you why I know this, but there's a lot of dominatrixes in Chicago.
The only other time I saw a story that featured dominatrixes was Neil Steinberg actually went to one and wrote about it for one of his columns, and I was like, how the hell did he get the newspaper to pay for this? Because he got the newspaper and asked his wife. He was married. And so I got to do. Yeah, imagine having that conversation with your wife.
She should have gone with him. She should have gone with him and whispered in a dominatrix ear, no, say this, it'll really piss him off. Say this, it'll really get him bad. Say this. Here's how you hurt him. Here's what you say.
How do you have that conversation with your wife?
If an executive is into humility stuff and they need a dominatrix, what they really should do is they should go in, they should tie them up, and they should have their kids come in and tell them what they really feel. Here's another thing, Dad, how you failed me. So do you think that when the restaurants open up that they should have mannequins sitting in the booths?
Oh, God. You see that story? There was a story. Is that one of the ones I sent you?
Yes.
Hold on. I want to name the guy who came up with this. So I'm sorry. Let me pull it up. Yeah, mannequins in the restaurants. Damn it. Sorry. For some reason, my mouse isn't working very well. You could have pulled up the story and helped me out here instead of making me.
Oh, you want me to do that? Hang on. I got it right
here. No, I already got it now. Or you could have kept talking.
What are you complaining about?
The silence.
About?
I'm just sitting there going, you're supposed to vamp. Oh, yeah, now he's got.
You need me out there?
So, all right. So, what's the restaurant here? So, a restaurant came up with the idea of putting mannequins in the restaurant so that it seemed full. It's a Virginia restaurant. And a chef, Patrick O'Connell, came up with this. He's the chef at a restaurant called The Inn in Little Washington, an upscale dining establishment. And when they opened up, he said they can only fill to 50% capacity. So he was going to fill the other 50% of the seats with mannequins just sitting there. And everybody on Twitter came back and said,
what else would they be doing?
Well, yeah. Imagine if you had them so that they would move around a little bit,
Animatronics.
Yeah. One of them,
those Hall of President dummies got to have a job somewhere while they're furloughed.
They could have one set of mannequins breaking up, one female mannequin having her hand like this to the guy across the table.
She was my sister. How could you?
So they Twitter revolted against this, and I actually I thought it was really funny. I would love to go see it, but I could see how people would be weirded out by that. Just these silent things sitting near you.
Yeah, I mean, it is weird, but I wonder if when you went there, if you'd get over it really quickly and that it actually would make you feel less weird, because to me, eating in a really empty restaurant is weird. If I eat in a really empty restaurant, my first thought is something's wrong with this restaurant. That's why if there's nobody else but me here, then I'm the last guy to find out. And
Right.
I'm going to find out in that first forkful. So I saw, every time your phone rings, I think it's my phone ring. I saw another weird restaurant in Japan. They have a restaurant where you can sit down and have a meal with a blind date. Like they choose the person for you in the restaurant. They have seats on either side of a wall, and they have like a slider in between it. And after you're both sat down and all your food is there, then they slide the thing up and you find out who you're dating. And it's, I'm just like, I kind of want to do that here in Chicago, but tell one side, all those people, they're all like, hot college students. The other side are all seniors from the home. Like, no, it's going to be great. It's going to be fantastic. You're going to love this. You don't get your money back.
And when we did in Chicago, you would have to, you would not be able to choose people's gender for them. So it would be random, you might end up with me. I mean, and
hey, I mean, you don't know what people are into,
right.
So,
you don't know.
But
you can't
I
ask.
assume that would be on the menu. I assume that when you walk in, they would ask you questions like, what are your pronouns? And secondly, do you wear a merkin? And finally, where do you put it? So
the menu. Imagine the menu. You have a menu, and you go, well, I'd like a female. I like her to be blonde, shorter than me. Beyond that, you can pick like certain attributes out on the menu. And our specials tonight are
our specials,
swimsuit models and college basketball
circus
players.
Course. And circus course.
Circus stores for dessert.
God damn. All right, I know you want to talk about it, so go ahead, bring up Biden. That's what we'll close out with because the workers are here. So
I really wasn't. I didn't send that to you just to bring it up for the podcast. I sent that to you because I just thought it was a weird thing. As a matter of fact, so Biden was on a podcast called The Breakfast Club with a guy named Charlemagne the God. God. Have you heard of him?
Rapper. Oh yeah.
Okay. I want to see if we can get this. See, I'm thinking we should start to get some of these guys and see if they'll come on our podcast to talk about stuff like this.
Yeah, they're not going to.
Probably not.
Here's the deal. No one's going to come on our podcast who has more listeners than we do. That's not how the podcast things. And like Charlemagne the God, the reason the politicians stop is because he's
huge.
He's enormous, and his audience is primarily African American, and though not entirely.
Wait. I'm sorry. When I said he's huge, I meant his audience is huge. I don't know the man personally.
Oh, really?
Is that because
really?
you made it sound like I was saying you said he's enormous? I'm like, well, I didn't know that. If he is, I'm not fat shaming.
So
I'm not fat shaming anybody.
I'm not
Nancy Pelosi.
I've never seen. But the politicians stop in on that because the audience is important, and also because it's a really kind of it's got like a Howard Stern kind of thing in only one regard, and that is that, generally speaking, the guests are less guarded on that show. So it's really weird because what Biden said, I think a lot of people are going to go, he's so racist, and a lot of people are going to go, he's absolutely right. And I think the people that go, he's absolutely right, are probably some African Americans, not all of them, because there's going to be a lot of African Americans going to go, you're an asshole. But I don't think Charlemagne the God felt that way. And
and because I personally don't think that. There's going to be people on both sides who are going to seize on it for whatever political things that is. I think that Joe Biden tried to be funny, and I think that it was.
No, I don't think so. I think he was pissed.
You think so? Really? I haven't actually heard.
I read like the transcript. Okay,
I read it,
not the transcript. He was his handler was pulling him out of there, and as he was leaving, Charlemagne the God said something, and he like turned around and goes, well, you know, if you can't decide whether you're going to vote for Trump or me, then you're not black enough. Or I think actually just said you're not black.
You're not black. Yeah.
Said is you're not black. And so
right.
I mean, I understand where Biden is. I don't know much about Biden because when he was vice president, I didn't really pay any attention to him. And since then, it's hard for me to get past the whole corn pop thing. But I get the impression that, I mean, I think he's a off the cuff kind of guy, which hasn't worked well over the last 4 years. And
what?
Loud noises. So, so I think the problem with the statement he made to me is not that the sentiment of his statement was bad. I think the problem with it is that it was going to be one of those things where it's just going to cause a huge media issue because so many people are gonna seize on it and just blow it up. And I'm very curious to see what Damon Young says about it because he's my favorite black writer, and he hasn't said anything about it yet. And I want to see what his readers say about it too, because if you ever read a Damon Young article, when you're done with the article, there's more. It's all the comments because the comments are brilliant, and there's like almost a second story just in the comments section. But I don't think that I think it's that tough point of view where are you allowed to say something like that if you're white? And knee-jerk reaction is no. But on the other hand, if you're a person who pays attention to inherent racism in politics and stuff, and particularly in the current administration, you're and before Trump was ever president, you might be inclined to say, well, yeah, of course he's correct. But I don't think it's going to work out very good for him. And he's going to have to come back on that show.
Well, he's already apologized this afternoon. But the reason that I brought that up to you was to point out that the news story about it, which I sent you, was, to me, it was amusing because the headline was sorry. Did I sent that to you, right? An email?
Yeah. Hang on.
Oh, okay. So the headline of the story was Biden, you ain't black if you can't figure. Wait, hold on. Sorry, I want to read
you ain't black if you can't pick me over Trump.
Yeah. They already changed the story because he apologized. So the headline that was there earlier. But my interesting was, this was a Sun-Times story. The original story, the headline talked about Biden and what he said on this podcast. Then half the story was about Trump and the racist statements he's made over the years, some of which were not even true. And it was like really amusing to me from the media standpoint, which we've argued over and over again, that if you write a story that's bad for Biden, you have to write half the story about how Trump is worse. And if you write a story about Trump being bad, you don't quote anybody else in what they've ever said about anything. So that's what really bugged me about the story. Personally, I think that what you said about Biden's an off-the-cuff guy, and that hasn't worked out very well the last few years. I think it's probably the most true thing. He made a comment. I think he was the way I read it was that he was making sort of a smart-ass comment about how he had to give up the studio for his wife to do some TV show, and sort of kind of went like we talk about, oh yeah, I got to get out of here because my wife's telling me to do something. And the Charlemagne kind of said, well, we have more questions, and then he made this comment, if you have a question about whether you're going to vote for me or Trump, then you ain't black. And I think he meant that to be
comment. That's better as far as I'm concerned.
Well, I think he intended it to be a smart-ass comment, but you're also right in that I think that over the last few years, if you're an old white guy, you don't get to make those comments anymore. It's
No,
it's
you need
going
to
to be
shut up.
yeah. I mean, it's going to be bad for you. And whether that's right or wrong, I mean, we're supposed to have free speech, but we don't, and you can't make those comments. I cannot make that comment.
Free speech does not mean you get to denigrate people.
No,
Free speech is exclusively.
it depends
about
on who
how
you
the government-
denigrate. I mean, nobody's criticizing Nancy Pelosi for calling Trump morbidly obese. So it
Shit
depends
ton
on
of
who you're
people
talking about. But when it comes to
Ton of
race, I mean, let's be honest, Chris. We cannot make those comments, and because there's a long history of how hurtful they are, and so it doesn't have anything to do with free speech. It's just that that's the way as a society we're going. So I think you froze up there. I think I lost Chris. Oh,
No.
what?
Well, on that note, I kind of need to go because there's a bunch of guys here throwing shit out of my house.
All right. But there was something else. Oh, well, it doesn't matter. It would lead to another discussion. So, all right. So we are going to be back Tuesday.
Unless I die, yes.
From what?
COVID-19, basement poisoning. I don't know. It's very biblical out here. Locusts.
Unless-
Jesus Christ. There were two
unless you're
foxes in my yard last night. I could just get eaten alive. I don't know.
Unless your wife starts looking at that hole and going, he'll
No,
fit in there.
She does watch a lot of TV shows about women who murdered their husband and got away with it. So, all right.
All right.
I got.
So have a good weekend. Have a good Memorial Day, everybody. We'll be back on Tuesday about 7.
Listen.